Askreddit, Redditors who cook, what's the biggest no-no thing in cooking? Cooking everything on high because you want it done faster. Do you know my mother? A dull knife. My parents had no idea all of their knives have been dull for the past decade until I sharpened them and they were like, wow, it's like a brand new knife. Don't let your baking powder get clumpy. Tiny rocks of baking powder ruin anything you bake. Have done it. Biting into clumps of baking powder sends shivers down my spine. Cranking the heat to reduce the cooking time will leave you with a burnt outside and an underdone inside. I had a roommate once who was doing a recipe with sautéed onions. He was scorching the heck out of them and I told him that his dish would taste a lot better if he cooled the pan a little and did a nice slow caramelization. He told me he didn't care if it tasted good or not. I still don't know how to respond to that. Do not mix hot cooking oil and cool sink water. I saw a girl burn the hell out of herself because she didn't listen to the home ec teacher. She threw her hot oil in a sink with some cool water running. Boom. Sprayed hot oil all over her arm and neck. Let your oil cool, folks. Why are people pouring oil down the sink in the first place? Glass cutting boards. Like seriously, just GTFO. And in a similar vein, dangerously dull knives. I've seen some real bludgeons in other people's kitchens, no wonder they hate prep work. I have a small glass cutting board but I don't actually use it for cutting. It's next to my stove and is my designated I need to set this spoon down area because it's easy to clean. That's all it's good for really. Don't try to catch a drop knife. Back away and let it fall. Edit, my first silver. Thank you, kind stranger. Edit 2, gold. Thank you, other kind stranger. A falling knife has no handle. Someone on Reddit, probably Edit, so far, you, synthesizer has a 4-year claim to the quote. Can anyone top that? Edit, guys, I'm aware the quote is much older than that, but thanks for the tips. Semicolon closing parenthesis dot. Cutting with a dull knife. Get yourself a sharpener, even if it's a cheap one. Nah, just get a new knife and save the dull one for the bathroom. Don't forget to let the ingredients get to know each other. Mr. Onion, this is Mrs. Tomato, then you push them together to make it look like they're kissing. Never, and I mean never, panic if you start a fire on accident. You need to be calm enough to know if you have to smother it, oil or grease fires, or grab the extinguisher. Panicking can get your house burned down. My mom fell asleep while making fries and woke up to a house full of smoke. She then threw a polyester blanket over the pot full of burning oil which burned the whole kitchen down. Should have just put a lid on the pot, but now she got a brand new kitchen covered by insurance lol. Standing in the kitchen when I'm cooking. Get the frack out, don't get in my way. And how can I help? He inquired with a smile. He picked up a peeler and played for a while. He hovered. He loitered. He lingered with doubt. I looked at him kindly and whispered, get out. Learned this the hard way, don't throw fresh chili peppers into a hot pan unless you want to pepper spray the whole house. Have you ever cooked Indian food? Pepper spray is just part of the experience. Always wear pants while cooking bacon. Or just an apron. Incorrectly storing ingredients, seriously, you can get ill if you let raw chicken juice drip on your salad in the fridge. Then, cut meat and veg on separate boards. Cross-contamination is such a huge deal in cooking. Like no, you can't cut veg on the same board you just cut a raw steak on. You trying to make everyone sick? Edit. Okay, to clarify, steak wasn't a good choice for examples, chicken is the more obvious one due to salmonella. And yes, if everything is being cooked right after, so long as everything is cooked to the right temperature, it's fine. Just be sure to wash the cutting board thoroughly and sanitize your tools. Cooking with extra virgin olive oil over high heat. You sound bitter about this. Don't grab something that is on the stove without a towel or some type of heat protection. Don't combine water and hot oil. If a grease fire starts, don't use water to try to put it out. Salt, a baking sheet, or a dry towel might work if you don't have a fire extinguisher. Don't season a liquid before reducing it, it will become too salty after you reduce it. Don't use a cold pan to sear something, get the pan hot first, better sear. Don't use extra virgin olive oil when you're using high heats, it will burn. Don't cut meat immediately after cooking it, more juices will flow out, the meat will become drier. Wait a few minutes, don't hold an object with your fingers extended when you're cutting it. You're less likely to seriously cut your fingers if you curl your fingers like a claw. Don't use a sharp knife on metal, like a pie tin or steel counter, or glass or marble. Don't use a nice knife on anything other than food. A common offense would be opening a food package with it. Don't send a nice knife through a dishwasher. Don't leave a sharp knife in the sink. Don't leave a knife wet. Even ones claiming to be stainless will often rust if left wet. Don't follow a recipe too religiously. If it doesn't taste well to you, don't leave it because you followed the recipe exactly. If a grease fire starts, don't use water to try to put it out. Salt, a baking sheet, or a dry towel might work if you don't have a fire extinguisher. The pot's lid is the best one. Medium rare chicken. Works for steaks, but not for hen. Buffalo Wild Wings seems to think it's okay. Coming anywhere near my non-stick pan with metal. If you scratch my pan, I will scratch your soul. My brother is really good about this. And then when he washes a non-stick pan, you can hear the scratching from the brush against the pan 2 rooms away. And then he wonders why his non-stick pans only last approximately 6 months or so. Not seasoning your chicken. Overcooking chicken too. For the love of God, stop mucking about with whatever it is you're cooking. Unless it's something you specifically need to be mixing or stirring constantly, leave it alone. You'll never get proper color on things if they make more contact with your spatula than your pan. This is how I always frack up pancakes. They are so simple, but for some ungodly reason I have a compulsive need to try to flip them when I know that shit shouldn't be touched yet. Edit, yes, I know when it bubbles you flip it. I said I have a compulsive need to try to flip it even though I know it's not time. Don't burn garlic. Burnt garlic is delicious. Also there's lots of Asian food that specifically calls for it. Chef for 10 years, here's some good things to keep in mind when cooking at home. 1. Clean as you go. It minimizes clutter and mess and makes everything easier. 2. Sharpen your damn knives, seriously, dull knives are dangerous as frack. 3. Blenders are not just for smoothies, use them for sauces and your life will be changed. 4. Please stack your fridge appropriately so cross-contamination doesn't happen. Veggies and fruit on top, also eggs is fine, beef, fish, poultry. Chicken juice will contaminate raw veggies so quick. 5. You don't need a frackin' knife block. I'm a chef for a living, I butcher 10 to 20 ducks a week and I have 6 knives? Even that is just cause I'm very particular. Your average home chef needs 3 at most. A standard length chef knife, a paring knife, which most home chefs never use from what I've seen, and a medium-size blade for veggies can be nice. 6. Label and date when you open stuff and keep it near the front. Keeping it near the front is most important as it helps encourage you to remember, ah yes, I have this kale that I should use before you open something else. 7. Olive oil can go bad, lots of people think it can't, but it can. 8. Canned stuff isn't the worst, just mix it with fresh stuff. 9. Diversify what ingredients you're using. Most Americans and Europeans cook with the same 20 things? Every time you go to the grocery store, pick up a new ingredient and try it out. Beets? Amazing. Like mushrooms? Try oyster mushrooms instead of generic shiitakes. Like onions? Grab a leek. Seriously, change it up. 10. Wading into more professional territory but try some fermentation. Lots of great stuff out there but I'd recommend kimchi. If you wanna get serious, buy the Noma Guide to Fermentation and actually read it. Best $30 you'll ever spend. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Microwaving a salad. Of course you don't microwave a salad, you fracking donut. Using metal utensils on Teflon-coated cookware. Cooking beef well done. Edit, not ground beef, lol. You got me there. At least not outside of burgers. Y'all know what I mean. Depends what you're cooking. If it's a steak, sure. If it's Hungarian goulash, you cook it for hours. Taste. As you go. My raw chicken never tastes very good, but I am sure I'll find a good bird one day. Guessing at amounts when baking. Baking is science. Cooking is art. Cross-contamination with raw chicken or pork. Reminds me of a cookout I went to where some boomer was working the grill, kept basting the meat with the marinade that the chicken came out of, would occasionally stick his finger in the marinade and taste it, then at the end he threw the cooked chicken back into the raw marinade. Was basically grilling up some salmonella with a side of diarrhea. Don't rinse your pasta. Pasta should never, ever be rinsed for a warm dish. The starch in the water is what helps the sauce adhere to your pasta. The only time you should ever rinse your pasta is when you are going to use it in a cold dish like a pasta salad or when you are not going to use it immediately. Everything else I read here seemed like common sense. But I guess I've been doing pasta wrong my whole life. Making a cake then eating the whole thing right after. You need to let it cool down enough before you apply the frosting. Only then can you eat the whole thing alone, by yourself, in the dark. Having ketchup as a pasta sauce, instead of making one, which is super easy and million times tastier. That's just disgusting. Has this actually happened before? Cooking with unwashed hands. But cooking this way requires less seasoning. Don't burn the ramen plastic accidentally when cooking. One time when my parents left me home alone I almost burnt the house down because I forgot to add the water to my ramen cup before putting it in the microwave. It didn't catch on fire, but the microwave still smells terrible 2 months later. Never put oil in the pot when cooking pasta, as the sauce will just slip and slide away instead of sticking to the pasta. This explains why I can never get the fracking cheese to stick to my mac and cheese. Do not mix citric fruits with milk. I do this only for a buttermilk substitute and it actually works. Feeling like it's too hard or being afraid to experiment with stuff. Obviously don't try something totally new when you're cooking for guests, but don't feel like failing means you suck. If you mess up, learn from it and move on, it's not the end of the world. Hardest agree in this thread so far. I can't tell you how many dishes I've made that I had to hate eat because they turned out poorly or bland, but each one teaches you something important if you are willing to learn. My success rate at making new dishes is very high now because of all the failures. You can't cook without onions just because you don't like them. Can confirm. Hate onions, still cook with them. Raw onions are totally different from cooking onions into something. Don't leave pasta in the water when it's done. I eat my noodles with a straw. Not washing your hands after touching certain things, like eggs. I eat raw cookie dough all the time though. Mixing bleach and ammonia when cleaning the kitchen after hours. Did that once as a kid. These two products are supposed to be good cleaners on their own, so I'll combine the two and it'll be super clean. My eyes were watering so badly. Never do your prep work as you go. Do all the prep work up front and your cooking experience will be so much better. That's why cooking on TV looks so much easier. Someone put forth the effort to measure and prep the ingredients ahead of time. Nothing's worse than trying to cook and prep at the same time. Please subscribe. Multiple videos uploaded daily.